These are the 5 things I've been watching during the preseason that I believe is going to shape how the start of the season actually plays out. And trust me, the last one is going to be the most important storyline of all. Let's start off in San Antonio. And the question is, can the Spurs keep up with Victor Wembanyama? Man, Wemby already looks like he's about to change the league this season. He's moving differently, he's playing with more power, and he just looks like a guy who's about to make a leap from a phenomenal prospect to an unfair cheat code. But as dominant as he's looked in the preseason, the real question is whether the rest of the Spurs can actually keep up with how good he's about to be. Last season, they swung big at the trade deadline, bringing in De'Aaron Fox to pair with Wemby, the kind of elite scoring guard that could open up the floor. It was a bold move, but they wanted to accelerate this rebuild and start competing right away. But things didn't exactly click as they hoped. Fox looked uncomfortable in the new system, way too often just standing in the corners while others were initiating the offense. And his numbers dropped down to just 19 points per game on a terrible 49% effective field goal shooting. That's not what you want from your all-star guard who's supposed to be leading your offensive engine. To make matters even worse, Wemby was shut down late in the season due to blood clots found in his shoulder, which instantly killed any chance of the team being able to build some real chemistry down the stretch of last season. Now it's flipped. Wemby's healthy, he's bulked up over the off-season, and he's been straight up bullying guys in the preseason. But now it's Fox who's on the shelf, missing all of training camp and preseason due to a hamstring injury. It's just such bad timing, because this was the stretch where they could have been ironing out all of the details and truly learning how to play off of one another. But this is where Dylan Harper comes in. The rookie guard they grabbed with the number 2 overall pick looks way more NBA ready than most of us expected. He's got that Jalen Brunson type of feel for the game, really patient, super polished footwork, always under control, and he stands at 6'6", bringing more size to the backcourt. If he can handle the early point guard duties before Fox gets back, that could be a massive difference between the Spurs keeping pace in the West or digging themselves a hole too early. But even though the Fox situation is concerning, there is still another probably larger concern for the Spurs, and that's their 3-point shooting. Last season, they finished 20th in 3-point shooting percentage at just 35%, but they were taking the 7th most attempts. That's a tough combo. You want to shoot volume and efficiency, but not one without the other. When you've got a player like Wemby who's going to draw double teams nearly every possession, you need those kick-out shots to fall. Right now, outside of Fox and maybe Wemby himself, they don't have many confident shooters. Harper and Stephon Castle, last season's Rookie of the Year, both prefer to get downhill instead of spacing the floor. So, the Spurs are fascinating. They might have the most talented young core in the league, and Wemby is about to do things that we have never seen before. But the question just isn't about him. It's about whether the rest of the roster can grow quickly enough around him to take advantage of just how good Victor Wembanyama is truly going to be next season. Now, let's move on to the second thing that I'm watching early in this season, and that is just how good the New Look Bucks really are. Milwaukee are one of the most intriguing teams coming into this season because they've completely changed their identity. They've moved on from Damian Lillard, stretched his contract, and then brought in Miles Turner to form a new look roster entirely built around what Giannis does best. And the question now is whether this identity, basically turning Giannis into a full-time point forward again, can actually work at the highest level. You can already tell what the plan is. The Bucks are trying to play faster than ever before, inspired by what Indiana did last season. They want to get out in transition, use Giannis as an ultimate downhill force, and generate open threes by constantly constantly keeping defenses off balance. And when Giannis was finally able to join the team in preseason, after dealing with COVID back in Greece, you could see the new approach immediately. Against Chicago, the starting five looked incredible. They were pushing the ball at every opportunity, getting into their first actions quickly, and then if they didn't get the shot they liked, they were immediately flowing into the secondary action. There wasn't any standing around, and it was just constant motion. Turner has been the glue of what makes that work. Everybody knows that he's an amazing shot blocker and one of the best three-point shooting bigs in the NBA today. But his basketball IQ is what really stands out. He's always in the right spot, and he makes quick, decisive reads that keep the ball in motion. There were moments where Turner touched the ball and then was able to immediately turn it into a dribble handoff, keeping the defense off balance while keeping Milwaukee's offense in motion. That's what Milwaukee was missing last season: quick decisions and offensive flow. The style also fits their strengths perfectly. Milwaukee were actually the #1 team in three-point shooting percentage last season, but they were 18th in attempts. The complete opposite situation to what was going on with the Spurs. Giannis said in an interview that the goal this year is to get up around 45 threes a game. And in that same night in Chicago, they hit 20 out of 48. 42% from deep. That's exactly the blueprint. I also love that they finally moved Kyle Kuzma to the bench. Starting AJ Green instead keeps that crazy efficient four-man combo together from last season. Giannis, Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, and Gary Trent Jr., as they had a ridiculous plus 42 net rating. Now add Miles Turner to that, and you might have one of the most balanced lineups in the NBA. Now, the third thing that I'll be watching this season is just how good the Nuggets are going to be right away after they appeared to fix their weak spots. The Denver Nuggets have been one of the best teams in basketball for years now, but they've had two glaring issues that have held them back from truly cementing themselves as a dynasty. The first was their defense. Well, the second is even more important, but I'll get to that in a second. Starting with the defense though, that had been the one consistent knock on Denver ever since Jokic became the centerpiece of the team. They've always been elite offensively. That part's never been in question, but their defensive structure has had cracks that other teams could expose in the playoffs. So, what's changed? Well, this preseason, they've been experimenting with a new defensive identity, and it might actually be one of the smartest adjustments we've seen from any team in years. This season, they're going to be using zone-based defenses more often than ever, and it's not the kind of static zone that you would expect. It's a high-pressure, matchup-based zone that shifts depending on who has the ball. You could see it in action in their first preseason game against the Clippers. They were pressing certain guys from full court and certain guys from half court, just trying to get the ball out of star players' hands, with the goal of making the secondary and even third option guys have to begin offense. It worked in this game, completely throwing the Clippers out of their offensive rhythm. The goal of this new system is to protect Jokic on the defensive side of the floor, and the early returns have been great. Jokic isn't being dragged into every single action because he's able to stay in the paint while the guys at the top of the zone are being far more aggressive. And yes, this led to them giving up some corner three looks, but you're giving those up to the worst shooters on the team, as guys like Chris Dunn and John Collins weren't able to knock them down at a good enough rate. Honestly, it's been a brilliant move from head coach David Adelman, because not only does it solve one of their biggest issues, but it also keeps their energy high during what can be a long, slow regular season. It's just smart basketball, and it's the kind of strategic shift that could make Denver a top 10 defense for the first time in the Jokic era. But like I said, there's another issue that's been even more important than their defense. The one thing that has truly kept them from repeating as champions, and that's their bench. This has been Denver's Achilles heel forever. Whenever Jokic sits, everything just falls apart. Last year in the playoffs, they were outscored by an absurd 31 points per 100 possessions when Jokic wasn't on the floor. It was legitimately unplayable basketball. But now, for the first time, they actually have real bench depth. Jonas Valanciunas gives them a great secondary hub, a big who can pass and score the ball, allowing them to run similar sets to what Jokic does in the starting five. Then add in Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown for scoring and defensive energy, and suddenly that second unit actually appears to be stable. Coach Adelman says he has plans to start the year with a 10 or even 11-man rotation, which means fewer minutes for Nikola Jokic. That's really important because he just played a career-high 37 minutes per game last season, and that kind of a workload really adds up over a full 82-game season. So if they can get that down to 33 or 34 minutes a night and still maintain their level, that would be massive long term. And the move to swap Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson was also a lot smarter than people realize. Porter's shooting dried up in the playoffs after the shoulder injury, and defensively, he's always been a constant target. Cam Johnson isn't an explosive scorer, but he's far steadier, a better defender, and a more willing and capable passer, all of which make him a far cleaner fit next to Jokic and Murray. So yeah, Denver looks different. They appear to be smarter, more adaptable, and far deeper. The zone defense is confusing teams, the bench actually looks competent, and Jokic can finally breathe a little bit. I believe this version of the Nuggets might actually be the best team in the NBA this season. Now, the fourth thing I'll be watching is how the Cavaliers plan to navigate the early stretch without key rotational pieces. Cleveland's going to be a fascinating watch early in the year because they're already fighting the injury bug. Darius Garland is still recovering from that toe injury that he suffered in the postseason, and Max Strus is also set to miss the first bit of the year. That is 2 of their 5 starters gone before the first tip, and that leaves a lot of questions about how they're going to look in these first couple of weeks. When Garland is on the floor, Cleveland's offense was just better last season. The ball moved more often, there was more flow, and the role players get more involved. Without him, Donovan Mitchell becomes the full-time initiator, which can work, but it does have clear downsides. Mitchell's a score-first guy, and sometimes that tunnel vision can make their offense too predictable. With Garland on the floor last year, the Cavaliers had a plus 9.4 net rating and an offensive rating of 124.2, which are elite numbers. Without him, they actually had a better net rating of 10.4, but that's a misleading number. The offense dropped off noticeably in the playoffs, and when he didn't play in a game at all, you could see just how much the ball movement suffered, and as a result, all of the role players got cold from 3. Strus matters as well. He's their best connective wing, a guy who can defend multiple positions, handle the ball a little bit, and hit the open threes to keep the spacing clean. Without him, the floor shrinks, and there are less guys who can move that ball around, making life harder on Mitchell and Mobley. But here's the upside. Evan Mobley appears to be ready to take a massive leap this season. Offensively, he's starting to find a rhythm, shooting the ball more confidently, attacking off the dribble, and just looking far more assertive overall. Combine that with the fact that he already won the Defensive Player of the Year last season, and you've got someone who could quietly be a top 15 player in the NBA next season. Cleveland's season doesn't necessarily hinge on this early stretch, but it's still crucial if they want to be the 1 seed. If Mobley can step up and hold them steady until Garland and Strus return, I think they're going to be just fine. But if that offense stalls too early and they lose a few close games, that really could be the difference between them finishing as the 1 seed and the 2 seed, where they're likely to face the New York Knicks in the conference finals. And I'm telling you right now, you want home court advantage for that series, because MSG is a different environment than they're used to. Now, the 5th thing I'll be watching early is whether or not Cooper Flagg can handle the pressure of being a starter on a team with real championship aspirations. Cooper Flagg might already be the biggest wild card in the league. With Kyrie out to start the season, the Mavericks' entire offensive system has basically been handed to a rookie. That's a massive responsibility, and honestly, I thought they might go through some real growing pains early on, but after watching him through the preseason, I've completely flipped. Cooper looks more than ready for the moment. Jason Kidd's not going easy on him either. He's doing exactly what he once did in Milwaukee with Giannis, throwing him into the deep water and saying, You're going to learn by doing. He's testing Flag in every way, putting the ball in his hands, forcing him to run sets, and making him the decision maker from day one. And the craziest part of all of this, it's already working. He made some incredible reads in his first 2 preseason games against Oklahoma City and Charlotte. And then in the third game, they chose to bench D'Angelo Russell and actually made Cooper Flag the point guard. And guess what? The guy looked just as comfortable, which is so scary for the rest of the NBA. And what makes this even more insane is how this isn't a temporary patch. Even when Kyrie Irving comes back, being able to have Cooper as your reliable secondary creator would change everything. It means the Mavericks can continue to run their offense even when Kyrie's getting trapped. That's huge for a team who's trying to play faster this year, and their offensive game isn't necessarily the strong point, leaning heavily onto defense. Coop has just been so impressive over the preseason, making great reads as a facilitator, being as good as advertised on the defensive side of the floor, and being able to fill it up as a scorer as well. If this version of Cooper Flag holds up, Dallas's entire ceiling changes. He doesn't have to be a stat scorer straight away. He just needs to continue to make the right reads, defend, and hit shots at a good enough level to keep the defense honest. But in the way he's already been doing those things in the preseason, it just makes me think that Dallas might have found something truly special in Cooper Flag. So I'll definitely be watching how he handles the moment early in the year, because that could absolutely decide their entire season. Now, the 6th and the most important thing that you'll need to know coming into this season is how I believe the Oklahoma City Thunder are really about to level up again this season. They just won 68 games last season and had a top 3 net rating in the history of the league, and still, somehow, they didn't feel like a finished product. Defensively, they were all-time great. They finished first in the NBA for defensive rating at 107.5, and that only got better once everybody was available in the postseason. What makes them so unstoppable to play against is how there's no weak link. There isn't a single player in the rotation who can be hunted or easily targeted on defense. Every guy's able to switch, slide their feet, and hold their own, and that collective effort makes them feel suffocating. But what really made their defense truly special was how it bled directly into their offense. Some teams get stops and then slow things down, but Oklahoma City does the opposite. They attack you relentlessly off every single turnover, every deflection, and every mistake. Their entire system is built around turning defense into instant offense, and it is absolutely relentless. They were number 1 in the NBA for forcing turnovers last season, generating them on 18.3% of their defensive possessions, which is insane. That means nearly 1 in every 5 times a team brought the ball down against Oklahoma City, they were coughing it up, and the Thunder were pretty much scoring off every single one of those turnovers. And what made it even scarier is how it didn't matter who it was. Even in the finals against the Indiana Pacers, one of the best low turnover teams in the NBA, they were getting stripped, trapped, and picked apart by the Thunder's defense. It's chaos with a structure. They rotate perfectly, read passing angles before you even make the pass, and the moment you do, they get steals. And then it is off to the races. That's how Oklahoma City completely flipped the script on the modern NBA. They turn defense into offense in a way that we've basically never seen before. A machine that can suffocate you on one end and then bury you on the other in the matter of seconds. But the one thing they still have to solve, the one obstacle that might decide whether they repeat or not, is their half-court offense. Because once the game slows down and those transition looks dry up, the Thunder do get a bit stagnant. We saw that in the playoffs. Teams like Denver sat back in zone, daring them to hit threes, and it took away the easy lanes to the rim. And even though Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was absolutely sensational, averaging 30 points per game on elite efficiency all throughout the playoffs, they just were not getting enough consistent scoring from the rest of the group, which did make them beatable last year. But this is where the leap can really come, because I believe there's going to be a ton of internal growth. Chet Holmgren's the first piece. He was phenomenal on defense, but after that hip injury, his offensive mobility and overall rhythm took a major hit. Thankfully, he's had the whole offseason to try and get back some of that mobility, be lighter on his feet, more confident pulling up with the jump shots, and more comfortable attacking off the dribble. And that alone could completely open up their spacing, as I believe an offensive leap from Chet Holmgren could change everything next season. But he isn't the only one, because you've also got Jalen Williams, who's quietly becoming one of the most complete young players in basketball. He played through a torn ligament in his hand during the entire playoff run, and he still dropped 40 in Game 5, where the Thunder absolutely had to have it. He can handle, pass, shoot, and defend. And the best part about all of it is how he's only getting better. The scary part about all of this is how they're this good before most of the guys on the team have even touched their prime. SGA is just entering his, and everybody else is still developing. They didn't even have their full starting five on the floor together until after the All-Star break, and yet they still won 68 games. So now the question becomes, what happens if the Thunder's half-court offense catches up to their incredible defense? Because if that happens, if they can find a way to generate consistent looks when the game slows down, then we might not be looking at just a repeat champion. We could be looking at the team that defines this decade. But speaking on things that we're incredibly high on coming into this season, the way the Mavericks are planning to fully unleash Cooper Flag this season is incredibly exciting. And if he can master these three key things early on, I think he could legitimately turn Dallas into a title contender. And if you want to hear that full breakdown video in more depth, then you can go check it out right now.